Hey everyone, welcome to the stream today. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. While we're getting ready, you can make sure you get a notebook and a pen or pencil And pay attention to the prerequisites for today's lesson. We have an intermediate level for everyone today. And in order to do the intermediate level, you want to make sure for this lesson that you have these concepts already down. I'll say that again. You want to make sure you really understand these concepts today before starting our lesson, because you need these in order to actually understand the topic we're going to be doing today. The first is that you know how to conjugate verbs. So action verbs, descriptive verbs, and that you can conjugate them in all the tenses. So I'm talking about past, present, future, progressive. And if any of those are unfamiliar to you, please learn those before this class. Otherwise, you won't be able to get as much out of this lesson because, again, it is an intermediate level lesson. Also, you want to be able to make commands. You want to know how to say, do something, please do something, don't do something, please don't do something. You want to know how to make those sorts of commands as well for this lesson, because the topic that we're using today can also be used as commands. And if you don't know how to do commands, you'll miss out on that whole part. And then finally, you also really want to be familiar with the 고싶다 form before we start, because this form is also essential. And in fact, this is the core of, I'd say, why a lot of people even teach this form in the first place. Starts from this form, which is a beginner level form. But of course, you want to be familiar with this as well. Now, if you're wondering, where can I learn all these? Billy, that's a lot of stuff. Well, you actually have almost 15 minutes right now. You can watch my other live episodes. I have abridged versions on all of these topics. So go learn them and then come back. You want to make sure if there's like one or two that you're missing, go learn it and then come back, and then you can join us for our lesson today. If you're still a beginner and you're wondering, is this topic for me? Probably not, because this is actually a specific use case that has, well, it has a lot of uses, but as a beginner, your concern is more, how can I make sentences that make sense? How can I have basic conversations? This is how you can sound much more natural when you're speaking Korean, much more like a native. This is not the topic we're learning today is not something essential for beginners to know, but it is for any level for people who are now already having conversation. So I just want to make that clear. If you're a beginner, of course, though, you're free to stick around, but this is what you would want to know to make sure you get the most out of today's lesson. Okay, let's see who's here. I almost said hello to Nightbot. Again, I almost always say hi to Nightbot because the name's in blue. He, she, I don't know. I don't know what Nightbot, I don't know what gender is a robot. Okay. Yes, though, if you're new here, welcome. I do live streams every Sunday, and we have a variety of topics, beginner, intermediate, and advanced even. If you'd like to request a topic, consider joining my members. We have almost 70 of you are supporters of this channel through this YouTube channel, and I take requests directly from you. So if there's a topic that you would like to learn specifically, and you think, oh, I really wish Billy would cover this topic, join as a member, make a request. If you don't want to stay a member, that's totally fine. I understand. But if you'd like to make a request, consider joining the membership and sending me a request, and I might just add it to our next list. In fact, after next Sunday's lesson, I think we'll be getting a whole new list of five new topics to vote on. So you only have another week or so to give your requests before that closes if you want to get your topic taught in the next set of 5 lessons. Okay. We have some announcements. As always, there are worksheets and outlines available for every live stream on my Patreon page. So although my membership for YouTube, I think, is about $5, Patreon only costs $1. So you can pay more if you want. But even the $1 memberships have access to all of my worksheets and all of my outlines since the beginning of time, or 2018, whichever sooner. And you can practice a worksheet for today's lesson right now if you'd like. It's already on Patreon. And the outline will be up as soon as this live stream is over. Also, hold on, let me pin this. The weather's not as cold lately. It's still a little bit cold. Some areas it's warming up. I'll just pin this. I've got some cool merchandise. I'll be adding more in the future, but right now I'm focusing on a new project, so I haven't had time. You can get this cool shirt or sweater or other stuff if you'd like. Just another way to possibly support the channel if you're someone, if your name is Elon Musk, and or if you have lots of disposable income, or you just really, really like my channel. just another way to support this channel for making new content. Okay, as my voice gets quieter, I'm actually just putting this away in the closet. Okay. All right, a couple other announcements. I do have one-to-one tutoring available. If that's something that interests you, you can contact me about that later. And, if you're a member, in addition to getting priority for making requests for these live streams, you also get access to watch all of these videos abridged tonight. So as soon as they finish, you can watch it on my channel the same night. You don't have to wait. Everyone else, you have to wait until Wednesday, or actually soon it's going to be Thursday or Friday once the beginner's course is finished uploading. So if you're a member, you get a bunch of, special features that regular subscribers, I still love you too, but regular subscribers don't get. So members get a little bit of benefits for that. And, oh yes, and one more important announcement. I have the video I uploaded last week that I am doing the Grading Korean series with your videos. That is still open. Many people have been messaging me, Billy, is it open? Can I still send something in? Yes, I haven't even made the video yet. I haven't even made the videos yet. I opened the submissions a few weeks early on purpose because I wanted to give people time to prepare and send in their videos and sometimes add subtitles and upload them to Twitter or whatever. So yes, that is open and it will remain open for at least a few months. I'm planning on making, first I'm going to make 3 episodes of it. And you'll see that starting from the end of next month, I believe, is when I'll first start to upload those videos. And I'm going to be taking submissions as long as people like those videos. So as long as people watch them and enjoy them, I'll make that a regular series. So it's not going away anytime soon. So don't worry if you're still, you haven't made something yet, you're planning on sending it in later. It's probably still going to be open. But yes, it is open. And if you send something in early, though, I will say you have a higher chance of being selected. Because once I actually start uploading the first episode, then it's going to be a lot more people. I think once I upload the first episode, a lot more people are going to send me their videos. So if you get something in before I film my first few episodes, then you have a higher chance of being selected for the actual videos. But, all right, that is the end of all the announcements. And I have already talked a lot and I'm out of breath. Let's see who's here besides Nightbot. Let's scroll up. Let's see who is here first. Cheryl, welcome. Anselmnida. Is it Anselmnida, I think, right? And what does Ansel mean? I don't get that. But anyway, you are Anselmnida. Tomato with potato. Welcome, tomato with potato. Well, I'm actually looking at my computer on the side, in case you're wondering what I'm doing. Let's see who else is here. Who else do I recognize? Lauren Wilson, welcome. Tolkien, GLX. And I think that's all that I recognize right now. We'll probably have a few more people come in a little bit later. Okay, so we are early. We still have 6 minutes left to go. So I can take a couple questions and then we'll start. Again, these are the prerequisites for today. We'll start right at 2 o'clock. So 4 minutes from now. It's my name. Ansel? Like Hansel without an H? Like Hansel and Gretel? Like Ansel? Or is it pronounced differently? Small. Welcome, Small. Someone asked, Loreply asks, graded or roasted? Or am I going to be grading your Korean or roasting your Korean? Grading. I don't roast Korean. If your Korean is awful, well, that wouldn't fit the requirements for the video in the first place, so I won't pick it. Don't worry. I'm not going to pick anyone's videos to roast them. That's not nice. That's not constructive. That doesn't help anyone learn. So, and frankly, when I was new, when I was a beginner, my Korean was terrible too. So, who am I making fun of? Ansel. Okay. Or Ansel Adams? Right? I don't know. I have no idea. I was like trying to think of who do I know named Ansel? Hansel and Gretel and Ansel. I think, is it Ansel Adams? With a photographer guy? Is that right? Or is it Ansel something else? Anyway, photographer. Okay, great. I was like, photographer. I think there's a photographer named Ansel Adams, isn't there? But I could be completely wrong. Let's see. Someone said, I'm sorry I came late. What's this lesson about? It's in the title. Check out the title. Famous Ansels. Go. Angelina Jolie. I don't know. That's the only one I could think of was Ansel Adams. Okay, that's a little bit hard. I was joking, but that was very thoughtful. Thank you. Oh yes, you're welcome. Okay. Let's see here. New to this channel as well as Korean. Well, welcome. You're going to enjoy learning Korean. Although I wouldn't want to go back to before I learned Korean and have to relearn it. No. I think it would be kind of fun to go back and talk to myself when I was a new beginner and try to see how much Korean I knew. I think that would be really fun to do, is to go back when I was a beginner, be like, hey Billy, let's speak some Korean, and then see like what kind of conversation I could have had at that time. Probably not much. Okay, your name Cats says, do you like cats or dogs more? I feel like this is a loaded question. There's a little bit of bias here. I am a cat person. If I have to pick, I like cats. I'm not a big dog fan. Like, I like dogs too, but if I have to, if you ask which one I'd rather have sitting in my lap, I'd probably pick a cat. They're lighter, lower maintenance. They ignore you. They don't acknowledge your existence. If they do, it's a good feeling. It feels good when like the cat acknowledges you. Princess Moonbeam, welcome. Hello, me and my mom are here. Welcome. How is your son doing? Yes, he speaks both Korean and English, and I'm gonna wait until he goes to school, and then I'm gonna make a video in the future, maybe after a couple years or so, about exactly for like childhood bilingualism, how we made sure that he speaks Korean fluently as well as English. Because I've already made a video about what I do, what the techniques I do are. That was a collab I did with Hyunwoo. It's in the Glass with Billy series. You can see it in the playlist. And we already talked about how we are making sure our kids are going to speak both languages. But I want to make a sequel to that with the conclusion, with the results. Because it's going well, but I also want to wait until a few more years have passed. That way it's more conclusive. Because I can say, as a 5-year-old, he speaks both languages. But the way the childhood education works, the way that kids learning 2 languages works, there are some times where the kids can speak a second language very easily, or a third language, but then they forget them. And it typically happens between 3 and 5, around 5. So I want to make sure that we can get through that. And then I can talk about, this is what we did, this is what went well. And then it has a little bit more legitimacy to it. Samuel asks, Mr. Billy, how did you come up with your Mr. Bill? Okay, first of all, my first name is Billy, but okay, Mr. Billy's fine. How did you come up with your signature outfit? These? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I just went in my closet and pulled these out. I could have pulled out any other clothes. I mean, it's not like I wear the same shirt every day. That's a common, this is a common misconception I need to break before we start. People keep saying, like, why are you wearing the same clothes every day? Like, I seriously don't know what you're talking about. Maybe they look similar, I guess, if you don't know. No, like, here, I'll show you. I have other hats. This is my other hat. Does it look the same? No. It's totally different. Okay, I have this hat. This hat too. Doesn't look anything like this hat. It has different words, slightly different shade of blue. And I have this hat. Totally different picture. And then shirts. You guys are like, you wear the same shirt every day. I don't know what you're talking about. Look at these. Do these look like the same shirt? No. Look at this collar is like a whole inch shorter than this collar. Okay? Look, this one's darker blue. And then this one's like, I don't even know. This is like totally different. So stop saying that. I don't wear the same clothes every day. They're totally different clothes. I don't get where the rumor started. I seriously don't understand it. So let's just put that rumor to rest. Okay. Okay, now it's 2:00, so let's get started with our lesson. Oh, okay. So, today we're going to learn about the form 싶어하다. I don't know why I wrote it up. I'm going to have to write the conjugation for it. Okay, the way to make it is you take a descriptive verb stem and then you conjugate it, just like normal, like you would for the you form. So, 하다 would become 해. If you don't know how to conjugate verbs, you really need to know how to conjugate verbs for this lesson. And by conjugating it, you'll either attach a or o or etc. There are a few other rules you might have to do. For example, 춥다, as you know, would have to become, well, 춥, not just 춥, but 춥다 first is 춥다, you get the verb stem, and then you have to attach, you remove the p up, you add uo, yo, right? So you get 추워요 when you conjugate it. Well, we just want this part, 추워. And same with 하다. 하다 becomes normally 해, 해요. Well, we only want 해. And then 가다 becomes 가요. Well, we only want 가. So that's the part. It's not just the stem, but it's the conjugated verb. And actually, I don't know why I did 가다. It doesn't work with action verbs. Anyway, so you take a descriptive verb stem and you conjugate it like usual, and then you attach 하다 to the end. That's all you have to do as far as conjugation goes. So here is what this form is. This form is another way to say that something or someone, I should say someone, this form is another way to say that someone seems descriptive verb, whatever that verb is. So this could be happy. This could be seems like they want to eat pizza. It seems like they like something. It seems like they are jealous. It seems like they're scared. This form means that someone seems a certain way. In Korean, it is said that you can never know 100% what another person is thinking or what they want or what they're feeling. I mean, that makes sense, right? How could you ever know 100% how another person's feeling or what another person wants? You really can't. But in English, it doesn't affect the way that we speak. I could say that I want to eat pizza, and you want to eat pizza, and Billy also wants to eat pizza. But in Korean, that sort of usage is actually awkward. And although it makes sense to use it, Billy is scared. I am scared. In Korean, it sounds awkward because you can't know 100% what another person wants or feels, what another person desires. So because of that, it's actually 100% incorrect in almost every situation to use a descriptive verb that's describing someone's wants or feelings about a third party. And by third party, I mean anyone that's not you or the person you're directly talking with. It's not correct to use any descriptive verb that talks about someone's feelings or wants about a third party because you can't know what that person wants or what that person feels. So, if, for example, you wanted to say, I think charsu is cold, that's totally fine. Let's do a better example. Because it doesn't really work with the cold ones. It would work more with, well, it could, feeling cold, yeah. Anyway, let's do a better example. Sad. I am sad. You are sad. I think charsu is sad. When I say I think, I'm not assuming, well, actually, I am assuming. I don't know exactly if he is, but I'm assuming it. I'm guessing it. In which case, it's okay to say, I think that charsu is sad. Because it's not knowing 100%. You're saying, I think, I'm assuming, I'm guessing. But if I were to say, charsu is sad. Well, in Korean, grammatically, and just according to the way that Koreans talk, that's wrong. You can't say charsu is sad because you don't know that. You could see charsu walk down and charsu's crying, but you can still not say charsu is sad. You could, however, say, I think charsu is sad. Charsu looks sad, or charsu seems sad, or even charsu said he is sad, but you cannot make an assumption. You cannot directly state someone else's feelings or wants in Korean. Okay, that's the introduction to our lesson. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Pardon the spacing. I didn't have space. Get it? Okay. Hey, let me just check the chat for a second. Make sure I'm not going too fast. Is this like 것 같다? No, it's not. The translation will be like seems, but it's actually not. We're going to talk about exactly what it means. For all of you who already know this form, you're going to get to learn exactly what this form means today, not just how to use it. Okay. So here are two different sentences. Pardon the spacing. 저는 가고 싶어요. I want to go. This sentence is 100% accurate. However, this next sentence is actually wrong. 철수는 가고 싶어요. Why? Why would this sentence be wrong? I mean, I can say I want to go, so 철수 told me he wants to go, so 철수는 가고 싶어요. 철수 wants to go. Or maybe even 철수도. 철수 also. 철수도 가고 싶어요. 철수 also wants to go. Why can't I say that? Well, you can say it, and it makes perfect sense to anyone you're talking with. They know what you're trying to say. But it's considered to be wrong. It's a wrong way of speaking in Korea because, not just in Korean, but in Korea, the culture, because you cannot know 100% what 철수 wants or what 철수 is feeling. 철수 wanting to go, well, that's his own feeling. That's 철수's feeling. That's 철수's desires. You cannot know that. You can, however, say, I think 철수 wants to go, because now you're not saying that 철수 definitely wants to go. You're saying, I think he does. You can say, 철수는 가고 싶다고 했는데, 철수 said he wants to go. You can say, 철수가 가고 싶은가 봐. I guess 철수 wants to go. 가고 싶은 것 같아. I think 철수 wants to go. You can say other variations, but you cannot directly say someone else's feelings or wants. Okay, so what else is a feeling or a want in Korean? Are there any other grammar forms you can think of that express a person's feelings or wants? I'll give you a few seconds. Let me know if you can. There are a couple more grammar forms that also are not okay to use in the third person. Yes, Mary Laura asks, is 철수 가고 싶대요? Perfect, because you're only quoting. You're saying 철수 says, so 싶다고 해요, 싶대요, same thing. 철수 says he wants to go. Perfect. Yeah, small, we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about more than just that. Yeah, Koreans are too polite to factually state. It's not because they're polite, though. It actually doesn't have to do with politeness. It just sounds wrong. Maybe the original reason was due to politeness. I don't know. I'm not a Korean linguist. But it's not just being polite. If you met the biggest jerk in the world, he still wouldn't say this if 철수 wants to go, because it sounds awkward. 슬퍼 보여요. Yeah, you can say someone looks tired. So now you're saying, well, I don't know, maybe they're not tired, but they look tired is what you're saying. That's fine. 슬픈가 봐. I guess they're tired. You can use that too. Yeah, Leo. Molly gave a good answer. There are two more common forms that also would express a person's desires or feelings, and those are the Leo form, which you also would be familiar with from the 으려고 해요 form. The 으려고 form and the Leo form. This would be like that. These forms also show intent. So if you're going to say, 나도 갈래, I'm going to go too. I want to go too. Well, that's also your feeling. So I could not say, 철수는 갈래요. 철수는 가려고 해요. 철수 is intending to go. Well, that's 철수's feeling. That's what 철수 wants or doesn't want. That's on him. I can't assume that. So you could not use these forms also when you're talking about a third person. But can you think of anything else that's a feeling or a want? Someone's feelings or thoughts or whatever. Can you think of something else that you wouldn't be able to assume? Feelings. Any other verbs come to mind? Anything else? Any other grammar? Any other verbs come to mind that you think we also couldn't use in the third person or shouldn't use in the third person? Hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. This is a much broader topic than only one form, which is a small mention in the chat. This is a lot bigger than that. Hey, Secretive, welcome. This lesson isn't only about third person, someone asked. You might want to check the video description. It talks about what this form is used for. Sad, happy, yeah. And it's even more than that. Anzelmnida guessed correctly. What about saying that someone is sad or happy? Like I gave the example of sad before. Beyond that, any descriptive verb that expresses somebody's feelings also applies to this. I cannot say Charsu is happy in Korean without it sounding awkward. I can't say Charsu enjoys. I can't say Charsu enjoyed watching a certain drama series. I couldn't say Charsu likes pizza unless I use the appropriate verb. This form is necessary anytime you're expressing someone else's desires or feelings or wants, because you can never know for 100% what that person feels. So it's not limited to only things like verbs that mean I want to do, like 고 싶다 or 레요 or 려고. It's not limited to these. You can also use it for any descriptive verb, and there are a lot of descriptive verbs. Okay, this form is actually even bigger than I think most sources teach it. Because every time I prepare for these lessons, I search other lessons to make sure I'm not missing anything. And something that surprised me is that this is a huge topic that I think most sources don't go over into very much detail, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail than you'll normally find. So let's talk about that. So when you take a descriptive verb and you change it into a conjugated descriptive verb and you attach 하다, what you're actually doing is you're changing a descriptive verb into an action verb. So if we take the verb 고 싶다, for example, this grammar form, 싶다 by itself is just a descriptive verb. But when we change it to 싶어하다, what it actually is now is an action verb. If we take the verb 슬프다, to be sad, this is a descriptive verb. If we use it with our new form, we can get 슬퍼하다, like that. 슬퍼하다 is no longer a descriptive verb. This is an action verb. Every time you do this form and attach 하다, this 하다 actually means to do, thus making your descriptive verb an action verb. This has a lot of other stuff we can do with it now, though. What this form actually means then is not to seem, because to seem is you're expressing that someone looks a certain way or, acts a certain way. Kind of. This form often translates as to seem or even to feel, depending on the sentence. So just write that down. When you're translating it, this will most often translate it as, just keep in mind when you're translating, this will most often become to seem or to feel. But its literal meaning is not to seem or to feel. You're not really like feeling something, feeling sad, because if you said Charsu seems sad, well, you're still kind of assuming that he is. I don't know. If you say he feels sad, you are assuming that he's sad. So this is how it translates. The actual meaning of this form is different. To act outwardly like. Oh, did I get a donation? I see the board flickering. Oh, hey, Carrie, thank you. Awesome. Carrie. Awesome, thank you. Well, I'll just do one log. Whoa, two in a row? Dab 필요 없어요. 고빌리 선생님은 최고야. You are the best. Awesome, thank you, Carrie, and as well, Gianna. Two right back to back. Okay, well, I'm gonna do an extra long dab for both of you. I know you said we don't need a dab. I was gonna do 20 dabs for both of you for total. Ooh. Okay, oh, I think I pushed two of these. Okay. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay. So, where was I? Awesome. You paid for my internet bill for the month. Almost. Nice. What this actually means is to act outwardly like. Outwardly. So, if you say, 철수는 슬퍼해요. You're not just saying that 철수 seems or he feels sad. You're actually saying 철수 is 하다, to do. 철수 is doing 슬퍼. He's doing 슬퍼. That's what your literal meaning of this form is. That's what this form kind of literally means. 철수 is doing the sad. He's doing the sad, or he's doing the happy. He's doing the want to go. That's the meaning that you get with this form. To act outwardly, to act like, or you can even translate, you can also translate this as just to appear, if that helps you to understand it. And that's okay. You're not expressing that, I guess this would also be okay too, yeah. Because you're saying he appears by his actions, by the way he looks, by the way he's talking, by everything, he appears to be descriptive verb. So that's what this form literally means. And if you keep this in mind, it should help when you're translating things back to Korean. When you feel like, oh, what does this form mean? This 하다 verb means. It seems a little bit weird. Well, it actually means to act like something, or to appear as if doing something. There are a couple exceptions, and we'll talk about those later. But for right now, this is the literal meaning of the form. Okay, so because of that, technically, you're making an assumption, your own assumption, based on the outward appearance of someone else. That's why it translates naturally as to seem. Or you might want to translate it even more naturally as just 철수 feels sad, or something like that. But yeah, 철수 seems sad, happy. Any descriptive verb that has to do with, any descriptive verb that has to do with something that they want or they're feeling. Okay. So, so let's talk about how this works then. So if we have 고 싶다, like from before, 고 싶다 becomes 고 싶어하다. Now this verb is an exception. Normally, 싶어하다. Normally this form combines without a space, as we just saw with 슬퍼하다, one word. 싶어하다 is an exception. This one by itself doesn't follow the rules, doesn't play by the rules. This one, there's a space. Is that important? No. But this one has a space, technically. So you might see this written in like academic articles as two words. It's supposed to be two words like that. Why? I have no idea. But they just put a space in it. Okay. Small says, I teach Korean to get fit. That's one of the real reasons that I do these live streams, is so that I can get dabs. So hopefully if I do enough dabs, then my wife will think I will appreciate the muscles I get. That's the idea. Cool. This is a rule breaker. Yes, that is a rule breaker. Okay, so what can we do with an action verb that we cannot do with a descriptive verb? What do you think? What can we do with an action verb that we cannot do with the descriptive verb? Because I said this form changes the descriptive verb into an action verb. Well, what can you do with an action verb that you couldn't do with the descriptive verb? So when you're talking to someone that seems sad, no, Molly, this is for third person. For second person, you don't need this. For second person, you can ask them directly, are you sad? Or, hey, you're sad, right? But you can get confirmation for that right away. This isn't like some like a magic abstract concept. It's just they believe you can't assume someone else's emotions, someone else's feelings. But if you're right with them, you can say, 배고프지? You're hungry, right? 배고파? You hungry? 배고프겠다, like you must be hungry. But in that sense, it's an assumption. But if you're talking about a third party, no, you can't do that. So first person's okay, I want to go. Second person's okay, you want to go. Third person's not okay. Object, yeah, you can have object. Commands, yeah. Someone said it is so confusing. It will be confusing if you haven't yet learned the prerequisites for this lesson, because it's an intermediate lesson, remember. This is not a beginner lesson. They can do something. Yeah, you can do something with it. Action verbs not have object markers. Action verbs could have object markers. By that, action verbs can have an object. Sometimes. Not all of them. Passive action verbs can't. And there's a lot of action verbs that like 끝나다, to finish, is an action verb, but that's an intransitive. It can't have an object. But action verbs can be conjugated to different forms. You can make commands with descriptive verbs that are turned into action verbs. You can make commands or negative commands with action verbs, but you can't with the descriptive verb. So let me give you an example. You could say, don't be sad. 슬퍼하지 마세요. Don't be sad. You could not say, though, 슬프지 마세요. This sounds very awkward, and it's wrong, because you cannot make commands out of descriptive verbs. So you could, though, say, don't be sad. So if you want to say don't be descriptive verb, use this form, because you can do it now that it's an action verb. However, since this is a Go Billy class, I'm going to give you some more information on top of this. Technically, you cannot make a command unless Technically, you can't make a command unless you're using an action verb. But there are 3 descriptive verbs which are commonly used to make commands anyway. They also don't play by the rules. These ones are there are probably a couple more, but typically these 3. 건강하다, 행복하다, 아프다. 건강하다, to be healthy. People will always say 건강하세요, be healthy. 행복하다, to be happy. 행복하세요, be happy. 아프다, to hurt or to be sick. 아프지 마세요, don't be sick, don't be hurt. So these are exceptions. They can become commands without having to change into an action verb. But any other descriptive verb, you need to actually use this form, or else it'll just sound awkward. Okay, what else can you do with an action verb that you can't do with a descriptive verb? This might not be apparent, but it was actually one of the prerequisites. I said you need to know all the tenses. Well, you can also do the progressive tense. 고 있다, is doing something. Now, you can do the past tense, present tense, and future tense with an adjective you can do the past tense, present tense, and future tense with the descriptive verb already, but you couldn't do this with the descriptive verb. Someone is currently doing something, right? Because that would just sound really awkward. It wouldn't make any sense. You could say somebody is feeling sad. Currently has been feeling sad. Has been having a hard time. 힘들다, 힘들어하다. Yeah. So you can use this form with the progressive tense also. I don't have any examples of that for here because I have a couple other sentences we're going to do. But you'll see how it can be used for a lot of different ways. I don't know. Did I put that on the worksheet? I might have put it on the worksheet. Anyway, you can also use the progressive tense because it's now an action verb. So someone is currently acting outwardly as if they are, and they have been continuously acting like that. They have been appearing like that. So you can show some sort of consistent, continuous action with this form, now with a action verb that was changed from a descriptive verb. That was a very complicated description. If that didn't make sense, you could just ignore this. It's not the most common way they're used. It's just one more option. Okay, so something interesting. Maybe you didn't notice this. What happens when you change these descriptive verbs into What happens when you change these descriptive verbs into action verbs? What do you get? 좋다 means to be good, but normally you can say that you like something. 저는 피자가 좋아요. I like pizza. But you wouldn't be able to say 철수는 피자가 좋아요. It makes sense. It sounds a little bit awkward. When you're using these verbs also about a third person, you have to change them. So if you say someone doesn't like something, well, someone likes something. 밉다 is to detest, to hate something. It's not super common, 미워, 미워해, but it's sometimes used. 힘들어하고 있다. Yep. 싫어해. Yes, there is no space though. As I said, this attaches without a space. Only 고 싶다 has a space when it adds this form. So these forms, this grammar form we're learning right now is the origin of these verbs. 좋아하다, 싫어하다, and 미워하다. When you say 좋아하다, what does that mean? It means to like, right? It's an action verb, and you can use an object with. 저는 피자를 좋아해요. I like pizza. 철수도 피자를 좋아해요. 철수 also likes pizza. These are also the exact same form originally, but these ones are so commonly used that it actually is totally fine to use them for yourself too. You don't need to only use these verbs for other people. It's totally fine and common to use them for yourself too. But that's where they originally came from. To appear as if someone 좋다 likes something, as if something is good. To appear that way. Well, it seems like they also feel that way, is what you're saying. Or 싫어하다, to dislike, or 미워하다, to hate something. Okay. Just a fun little note. You didn't really need to know that it came from that, but some verbs actually, a couple verbs specifically, these are always the same ones that are referenced in any lesson about this form. A couple verbs will actually change their translation when used in this form because they're used in a slightly different way. 예쁘다, to be pretty, and 귀엽다. First, 예뻐, 하다, and 귀엽다, 귀여워하다. So we get 예뻐하다 and 귀여워하다. Well, you might think that 예뻐하다 means to appear pretty or to appear cute. No, these ones are actually more of the active feeling, to do something, as if you feel like somebody is 예뻐, someone else. So I'm acting as if I think someone else is 예뻐, or I'm acting as if I think someone else is 귀여워. Well, that's a very literal translation. What these verbs are used for is actually to say that you adore someone. And these are both action verbs. So you can say the grandfather adores or basically treats with love and affection, you know, his granddaughter. Or to hold dear, someone holds their best friend, holds their sister very dear to them, like that. But yeah, to adore someone, to like really treat them with a lot of love and affection. So that's what these ones mean. 예뻐하다 and 귀여워하다. So these ones have slightly different translations. These are not that common though. I think mostly you'll just hear it for like someone like an older grandfather or someone like that, or maybe a father. 딸을 예뻐해요, like really takes care of his daughter, adores his daughter, that sort of meaning. But these aren't the ones you're gonna say like you adore your favorite K-pop idol, like you adore Jimin or something like that. Doesn't really make sense because you don't have any contact with him. Sorry, let's just face it, he's not really your boyfriend. So you wouldn't use these for like people that you've never met before or you don't know. This would be like, for close family members, close friends, that sort of thing. Usually family members. Okay. And before we do some sentence examples, I've got a bunch of examples for us today. It is also okay. I'll say this before we get started with the lesson. The examples. I'll say this really quick also before we get into our examples, but it's also okay to use any of these verbs with the first and second person. However, it sounds a little bit awkward and it's less common. So you can say, for example, 철수는 슬퍼해요. 철수 appears or seems sad. But you could also say, 저도 슬퍼해요. But it sounds a bit awkward. It kind of sounds like you're referring to yourself in the third person. Yeah, Billy feels a bit sad too. But it makes sense. It's not extremely awkward, but it's not that common. But some people might do it. So you could hear it from time to time. It's not wrong, but it is a little bit awkward. I'll say that. Okay. And the rest are for third. Okay. So if you made it this far, you have survived the entire lesson. Now let's do some example sentences so you can actually see how this is really used. Okay. 영희 is our friend 영희. 영희 씨는 새 is bird. 새를 싫어해요. I don't know why, but 영희 really just doesn't like birds. 영희 씨는 새를 싫어해요. Young-hee doesn't like birds. Hey, Molly, thank you. Your videos always make me smile, Billy. Thank you, as always. Your donations always make me smile, too. No, thanks. Thank you for your donation. Also, thanks for coming in the stream, participating. Okay, once the board stops flashing, we'll go back to here. Okay. 영희 씨는 새를 싫어해요. So 영희 doesn't like 싫어해요, birds. You could not say, well, probably shouldn't say, 새가 싫어요. Like, you don't know. You shouldn't make assumptions about what someone else feels or wants. So, 싫어해요 is an action verb, and it's okay to be used with first, second, or third person. Okay, that's just a very basic example. I just kind of wanted to show you a general example of using an action verb. Okay, let's do another one. Not really the best example for this topic, though, because everyone knows that verb anyway. It's like you've been using it all this time and forgot that it's also part of this form. Okay, what about the verb 미안하다? If you make a mistake and you want to say sorry, 미안해, I'm sorry. 미안하다 doesn't just mean, it doesn't translate as to be, I am sorry. It's more like to feel sorry, right? If you say 미안해, you're actually saying I feel sorry. Well, you can't say someone else is feeling sorry because that's their feeling. So you can't say 철수도 미안해요. 철수 is also sorry. Like maybe you and your friend 철수 make a mistake and the teacher's like, I want you to apologize. You're like, 미안해요. 철수도 미안해요. 철수's sorry too. You can't say that because that's his feeling. He has to say that himself. You can say 미안한 것 같아요. I think he feels sorry too, but you can't just say he is. And you also can't make commands with a descriptive verb. So let's take 미안하다, a descriptive verb, and change it into an action verb. And we get 미안해하지 마세요. So don't feel or don't act. I was like trying to think, am I saying sad or sorry? Sad. Okay. Don't feel sad. Wait, no, I just said it wrong. Sorry. Don't feel sorry. 미안해 하지 마세요. 미안해 하지 마세요. Don't be sorry. That sort of meaning. So you couldn't just say 미안하지 마세요. Even though you might have done that before. Like, oh, don't feel sorry. It's okay. 미안하지 마세요. It's not correct. 미안해 하지 마세요. So don't do the be sorry. Don't do the feel sorry. Okay? Sounds like caveman speech or something. So 미안해 하지 마세요. Don't feel sorry. I should have written that with more space. That was really clumped together. Okay. Let's bring our friend Charsu again. Charsu 씨가. So Charsu is going to be doing something. We have the subject marker. So he's going to be the subject of something that's happening after. 저를, me. So now we know something's going to happen to me. And because we see an object marker, there's an action verb coming after it. What is Charsu going to do to me? Okay, what does this mean? I want you to translate this sentence. 철수 씨가 저를 무서워해요. What does this mean? 무서워해요. 저를 무서워해요. 철수 씨가 저를 무서워해요. What does this sentence mean? How would you translate this? Give it a shot. Don't look at the chat. Just try it on your own. If you get it wrong, it's okay. Just do it on your own. Try to see if you can get it. Yeah, someone asked about she. You wouldn't use she with anyone who you're using 반말 with. But it doesn't have to necessarily be coworkers. You can use it with your friends, but usually not your close friends. Like your acquaintance friends are okay, but if you're like actually really close with them, you probably wouldn't call them she. You might call them 형, 누나, 언니, 오빠, like that. Whether you're using 반말 or not. But if you are using 반말, you definitely would never call them with she. He appears scared of me. Scared of me. Afraid of me. Yes. Thinks I am scary. Not thinks I am scary. You can actually say 철수 thinks I'm scary. 철수는 내가 무섭다고 해. 무섭다고 생각해. 철수 thinks I am scary. That's fine. Because you're saying what he thinks. 생각하나 봐. Yeah, you'd still want to do, I guess he thinks I'm scary. But you would say that a different way with a different form. So it's not he thinks I'm scary, but 철수 is afraid of me. 무섭다 is to be afraid or to be scared. So 무서워해요 is to act outwardly like you are scared. So 철수 appears to be, because at least he's acting like that, he appears to be afraid, 저를, of me. 철수 씨가 저를 무서워해요. So 철수 seems to be afraid of me. 철수 is scared of me, is how you can just translate it. You don't even need to add the feels or seems when you translate it if you're just trying to make a natural translation. 철수's afraid of me. Also works fine. Chris Pine. Also works fine. Okay. Slowly, we'll do a little bit. Let's do a little bit higher example. Oh, I want you guys to do this. Go out is 나가다. Dog is 강아지. 강아지. Well, you can say 개, but it's a little bit strong. But 강아지 is more common. The dog wants to go out. How would you say this sentence? The dog wants to go out. You know, it seems the dog wants to go out. Sure, like that. The dog's acting as if it wants to go out. Sure. The dog wants to go out. How would you say this? 무섭다 actually doesn't mean to be scary, literally. It actually means to feel afraid. It's actually your feeling. And we'll talk about that. This is, it's difficult to explain, to teach this to beginners, but you guys are intermediates, so we'll talk about it in a second. 무섭다, though, doesn't mean to be scary, actually. If you say that movie is scary, what you're actually saying is, I feel afraid of that movie. Literally. You're saying, I feel scared of that movie. Whereas in English, we say the movie itself was scary. That's why I was afraid of it. But in Korean, it's the other way. In Korean, it's I felt scared of that movie. 그 영화가 무서워. 무서웠어. 무서웠어. It was scary. 너무 무서웠어. 진짜 무서웠어. 무서워. That's your feeling, not the movie being scary itself, but you're feeling scared of it. The dog wants to go out. So let's see what you guys got. Okay, we got some good sentences. Good. 5551. Good. I don't know how to say your name. I'm just going to say it like that. Good. 걔는 나가고 싶어 해요. Very good. 강아지가 나가고 싶어 해요. Nice. 강아지는 나가고 싶어 해요. 싶어 한다. Nice. Just checking your guys' sentences really quickly. So I'm not going to read all of them out loud, but I will read a few. Adri, remember that 싶어하다 has a space. It's not a big deal. I have to teach you, okay? Because I'm a teacher. But when you go out into the real world and you say that to a Korean, they're not going to care. 나가고 싶어 해요. 나가고 싶어 해요. 네, 나가고. Sharnice, you cannot do 싶어요. 싶어 해. Yep, you can do that. 싶어. Yep. Albthi. I don't know how to say your name. Also, you have to do 싶어 해요 or 싶어하다, some sort of conjugation of 싶어하다. 나가고 싶어 해요. 나가고 싶어 해요. Nice. 밖에 나가고 싶어요. Sure, you can do 밖에. 나가고 싶어 해요. 나가고 싶어. No. Mustafa, this is an intermediate level lesson, so I don't recommend learning it unless you've already been doing the regular one. But really, 무섭다 means to be afraid. Well, if you're saying 무서워하다, then you have an object. If you're just saying 무섭다, then you would use a subject. You couldn't use an object. So you're saying that movie is making me feel afraid, kind of. Anyway, that's for another. Maybe that's. I'm going too far. Okay, the dog wants to go out. I'll give you an example of something else about that though too. The easy thing to keep in mind, you don't really need to learn that. The easy thing is just to know if you're talking about a feeling, if you're talking about a feeling of a third person, use the 오하다 form, right? That's it. If you're not first person, second person, just use 무섭다. Easy. You don't need to learn I was going into like the literal meaning. You don't need to learn that though. Just know that when you're using emotion, feeling of a third party, use this hada form. If you're not, don't use the hada form. You don't need to learn the exact literal meaning of every single word in Korean. But I will talk about one though coming up soon. Okay. 강아지가 자꾸, I'm going to add in 자꾸. Like if you're doing something 자꾸, it's like repeatedly, over and over. You keep doing something. 자꾸 is an adverb. So like 자꾸 물어봐. He keeps asking, like keeps. Kind of in a negative way, like you're complaining that it's consecutive, it's continuous. 자꾸 나가고 싶어 해요. 강아지가 자꾸 나가고 싶어 해요. The dog keeps wanting to go outside. 강아지가 자꾸 나가고 싶어 해요. The dog keeps wanting to go out. Okay. Make this sentence. Don't be jealous. Jealous. Don't be jealous of me. Make this sentence. I'll tell you the verb for to be jealous, to feel jealous. It is 부럽다. 부럽다 means to feel jealous. So your friend might tell you that they went to Korea and ate and met some Korean. They met BTS. They got backstage. They hung out with all of BTS, and BTS gave them a love note. All of them gave him hugs. This is like 2019, and got their autographs, and he got their personal phone numbers, and they send them messages every single day. Right? You're like going crazy. You're like, 부럽다, 진짜 부러워. I'm so jealous. I'm so envious, is what you'd say, right? No, you strangle that friend. You'd be like, you're lying. You're lying to me. 부러워, 부럽다. So don't be jealous of me. And then you reply, you're like, don't be jealous. It was just a dream. I made it all up. Okay? 부러워하지 마요. Sure. 저를 부러워하지 마. You wouldn't want to use 저 with 마 because 지마 is a 반말 ending only for casual, and 저 is actually a humble noun for me. So that would be used in honorific speech. So you wouldn't mix 저 with 지마. You could do 나 though with 지마, or 지 마세요 would be okay too. Someone said, what's the difference between 부럽다 and 질투, not 질투. 부럽다 is to be envious. 질투 is to be, 부럽다 is like I'm jealous of that. 질투하다 is more like to envy, to covet. Like you want something that someone else has in that sort of sense. 질투하다 is more of a formal version. Like that would be like officially like 질투하지 마세요. Like do not be envious of others, like that sort of thing. Or 질투하고 있어, like the cat is always jealous of me petting a different cat. You might say 질투. 부럽다 is just you feel like, oh, that's so great. I wish I had that sort of feeling, and a feeling of envy. We would, in English though, this doesn't translate so one-to-one, but it's more of the feeling of just like, oh, I wish I had that. I'm so jealous. That sort of thing. And 질투 is like, I'm envious. I want that. That sort of difference. Of those, you'll use 부럽다 more 10-to-1 than 질투. 부러워하지 마세요. Nice. Okay. Don't be jealous of me. Most of you guys got this same thing. Let's do. I'm gonna give a different sentence, but it's also gonna use the same verb. 다들, everyone. 저를, me. 부러워해요. So here, the third party that we're talking about, the third person, is everyone. Everyone around me. So this is obviously, it's not me and it's not you, so it's someone else. So we have to use the 하다 form. 다들 저를 부러워해요. Everyone is jealous of me. 다들, everyone. Now this is kind of a informal usage for everyone. You wouldn't say 다들 if you're giving a speech or you're talking to, a boardroom, or you're talking to a bunch of people in work. This is more of a casual, informal, only usage word that means 다, everyone, 들, multiple people. So all you guys, all y'all, 저를 부러워해요. Everyone's jealous of me. 다들 저를 부러워해요. Everyone's jealous of me. Okay. Let's do it. Let's do something else a little bit harder. 이런 날씨는, so this kind of weather. As for this kind of weather, let's do this. 북극곰. 북극 is, I believe, the North Pole. 북극곰. 북극곰. North Pole bear, literally. This is what you call polar bears. 북극곰도 추워해요. 추워해요. Okay. 춥다, to feel cold. When the weather is cold, what do you say? 추워요. 춥다. 춥다 means to feel cold. So if the polar bears are even feeling cold, well, that's a third person, although they're not really people. They eat people, but they're not people. 복근곰도 추워해요. So even polar bears feel, it seems like they are cold. 이런 날씨는 복근곰도 추워해요. So in this weather, even polar bears seem to be cold in this kind of weather. So even polar bears are cold in this kind of weather. 이런 날씨는 복근곰도 추워해요. 춥다 is also a feeling. Just like 무섭다 is a feeling too. You feel cold. Did I write it wrong in my paper? Oh, okay. I just had a typo. I was like, that sounds a little weird. Thank you. I was like, 복. I'm pretty sure it's not Bokhan, like Bukhan for North Korea. Let me read that again. Yeah. I was thinking of north and I wrote Bok, but I'm like, Bok is not north. Buk is north. And I was like, but I guess it's a special word. And I'm looking at my paper, but I see I also wrote it down wrong. Okay. 북극곰. That sounds better. Pardon my French. 이런 날씨는 북극곰도 추워해요. So in this kind of weather, even 북극곰. So north pole bears. So polar bears. Okay, let me triple check. Make sure I got this right. This is why I should just use a spell check. Yes. Okay. Got it. 이런 날씨는 북극곰도 추워해요. Even 북극곰, polar bears, are 추워해요 because 춥다 is a feeling, to feel cold, so they seem to be cold. They appear to be cold. Even polar bears seem to be cold in this kind of weather. 이런 날씨는 북극곰도 추워해요. Okay. All right, we still got a couple more. 동생이 배고파 해서 라면을 끓여 줬어요. 오케이. 동생이 배고파해서 라면을 끓여 줬어요. How would you translate this sentence? Give it a try. 동생, younger sibling. 배고프다, to be hungry. 라면, ramen. 끓여주다, to boil for someone. So 끓이다 is to boil. 이런 날씨에는 you don't need to. You could. Ansel입니다. Got it. First. Not Fiona was close though. Not siblings, but 동생, just sibling. Unless there was some other context, it would just be sibling. Okay. 동생이 배고파 해서, because my younger sibling 배고파하다, seemed to be hungry. Oh, Laura reply. 북한곰. 복한곰. Oh yeah, 복한곰. Thanks for just rubbing it in. Bokhan. Yeah, Bokhan. Travel to Bokhan. I know, I was like, oh, north. Yeah, that's Bok. I'm like, wait. And in my head, I'm thinking like, Bokhan. I'm going to look this up in a second. I'm going to look this up in a little bit. It's probably right. Bokhan, right? Yeah. Thank you. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. So let's see if anyone else got it. 북한곰. So yes, 동생이 배고파해서 배고프다, to be hungry. So 배고파하다, to seem hungry. So my younger sibling seemed hungry. So 라면을 끓여줬어요. So I boiled him or her some ramen. So I made some ramen for my younger sibling because they seemed hungry. Or you can just say because they were hungry. But if you were to say 동생이 배고파서 라면을 끓여줬어요, that actually has a totally different meaning. If you didn't use this form, 배고파해서, if you said 배고파서, what would the sentence mean? Can anyone guess? This is a question for people who are truly intermediates or maybe advanced in the chat. What would it mean if I said 동생이 배고파서 라면을 끓여줬어요? 북극곰 라면. Polar bear ramen. That sounds good. Doesn't that sound good? Can you imagine like ramen, but it's got like big chunks of like clear ice in it? Like, you know, clean, not like garbage ice you throw away, but like clean, nice ice. No, even better. Shaved ice. It's got like a big pile of shaved ice, like what they do for naengmyeon sometimes. And but it's ramen. So it's like cold ramen with ice, and it would have like some fish in it too. And it would be called polar bear ramen. 북극곰 라면. That sounds good. I'm going to make that. Yeah. He was the one who boiled it. One person got it. Francile. Not since I was hungry. No, it actually makes a different meaning. 배고파서, because he is hungry or she is hungry. The reason is when you use the 서 form, the subjects of the two, whoever's doing something, has to be the same in a sentence. You can say 배고파해서 because I'm assuming, it seems like my younger brother is hungry. You're not saying directly he is hungry. You're saying it seems like that. So it's okay to use the 서 form. This is like back to the 서 form lesson. I did this once before. But if you said 동생이 배고파서, now the sibling has to be doing it themselves after that. It has to be the action they did. So then they made ramen for someone else. But that doesn't really make any sense. It just sounds awkward. 낙지 chef. Oh, 낙지. 낙지 chef. Thank you. Thank you, 낙지 chef. Why are you a 낙지 chef? It's very specific. Oops. This is really messy. 낙지 chef. 2,000원 감사합니다. Boom. Thank you. Visit polar bear inside the ramen. Yeah, that's probably illegal. I think polar bears are endangered, aren't they? I don't think you could legally make... Isn't it just naengmyeon? No. Naengmyeon is made with buckwheat noodles. And naengmyeon is also served with typically vinegar and gyoza, which is like spicy mustard, or you would know as just yellow wasabi, you know, that kind of mustard paste. And they also have an egg in it, and sometimes slices of cucumbers. And typically you can eat naengmyeon together with samgyeopsal, kind of like, or cooked, sometimes smoky beef flavored pork. Smoky meat, pork. This 북극곰 ramen I'm envisioning starts with regular ramen noodles and the base. Oh, and also naengmyeon is kind of sweet. This one is not. This one is going to be icy, but still with a ramen flavor. So it's kind of like cold ramen. And it'll have different toppings. So maybe like slices of some other kind of fish. Maybe nakji would be good. Maybe put some like octopus or squid or something in it. And I don't know. It's still a work in progress. I've had 10 seconds to think of this polar bear ramen, but it's not just going to be a ripoff of naengmyeon. It's different. Yeah, small. If you wanted to make it he made ramen, well, it would just be 끓였어요. You're right. So if we had just changed 배고파서, this sentence would be really awkward. Like, my younger sibling was hungry, so they cooked ramen for someone. Like, what? Why don't they just make it for themselves? Or maybe cooked ramen for me. But like, why would they do it if they're hungry? Cook ramen for someone else? No, so it would actually be wrong and have a different meaning if you didn't use this 하다 form. Now, a Korean, if you said this to a Korean, they would know what you meant to say. They would know what you're trying to say. But if you had said this as a Korean to another Korean, native speakers, it would just sound awkward. Okay. 동생이 배고파해서 라면을 끓여줬어요. So my younger sibling looked or appeared hungry, so I thought they looked hungry, so I cooked them, I boiled them literally, some ramen. 북극곰 라면. That's the takeaway from this live stream today. If you get nothing else from today's lesson, polar bear ramen. Here's another one. I want you guys to translate this. See if you can translate this. This is another trick one. Well, trick as in you have to pay attention to who is doing what. Okay, I will define a few of the words. 학생들이 지루해해서 일찍 끝냈어요. 학생, students. 학생들, students. 지루하다. 지루하다 means to be bored or boring. 지루해해서 일찍. 일찍 is early. 끝내다 is to finish, to end something. 학생들이 지루해해서 일찍 끝났어요. Not Mustafa, not the students were bored, so they ended it early. I'll tell you, that's where the trick comes in. Who is doing it? Because 지루해해서, because the students seem to be, I'm guessing they are, 지루하다, that they feel bored. So I, or someone else, what was that intonation? It's like my William Shatner coming up. Someone else ended it, the class, early because the students seemed bored. 학생들이 지루해해서 일찍 끝냈어요. So the teacher ended class, the teacher finished early because the students seemed bored. The teacher ended class early because the students were bored, or the students seemed, as the teacher thought, they seemed bored. 학생들이 지루해해서 일찍 끝냈어요. Okay, last sentence. Here is our last sentence for today, for this lesson. Now, you might be thinking these sentences are quite difficult. Most of the time when you see this form, 하다, used, it's going to be something really simple, like someone else feels a certain way. The end. The examples I'm giving you, though, are some ways you also might see it used. So I kind of want to prepare you for the worst. But most of the time that you'll see this, it's actually simpler than this. Okay. 아이가 동생을 예뻐해요. The child. 동생, younger sibling. 예뻐하다. Some verbs, as I said, have different translations when used in this form. 예뻐하다 from 예쁘다, as well as 귀여워하다 from 귀엽다, mean to adore someone, to hold someone, to treat someone with love and affection, that sort of thing. So adore. So the child adores their younger sibling. 아이가 동생을 예뻐해요. Okay. Other than those two, though, you can just memorize this as a form because the other ones all work the same way. These ones, 예뻐하다 and 귀여워하다, though, do have different translations that don't really match if you think of it like seems like they're 예뻐. What? Well, you wouldn't say 예쁘다 normally anyway, because 예쁘다 is not a feeling, right? 예쁘다 is not a desire or a feeling in the first place. So you wouldn't be able to translate it as acting as if they feel like something. No, it's more like acting as if they feel like someone else is 예쁘다 or 귀엽다, if you want to look at it literally like that. But for simplicity's sake, just learn those separately. Adore. Okay, that is the end of our lesson today. If you have made it this far, you've done a great job. And this is admittedly a very high and intermediate topic. Although the basics, the way this form works, is approachable for anyone at intermediate level. In order to fully understand this, it's definitely more of a high intermediate form. This worksheet is already up on Patreon. If you'd like to support me, you can get a worksheet for today's lesson. You can practice using this form. Also, the outline for this lesson with every sentence and explanation that I did is also going to be available on Patreon as soon as this lesson is over. Thank you for coming. If you'd like to continue to interact with me, I'm going to do a Q&A right now for the next 20 minutes or so. You can ask questions. If you're only here for the lesson, it's over. But yeah, now I'll take some questions. So feel free to ask whatever you'd like. Again, give yourself a round of applause for completing this very difficult intermediate level lesson. You definitely earned it. And hopefully, though, hopefully it wasn't too complicated. Hopefully I didn't go into too much detail on stuff. Okay. Yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free. Now is your chance to ask. We have about 20 minutes. Yay, though I can't understand 100%, but I will review this again. Thank you so much. Because 해서 is being an action verb, and 예뻐 isn't an action, but is descriptive, so it changes to adore. I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. I did explain, though, what it means, but you don't need that explanation. You can just know that 예쁘다 and 귀엽다 are not feelings anyway, right? It's not a feeling. It's a thought, like I think someone's pretty. Anyway, so you can just learn those separately as to adore. Nice. Yuksin? I don't know. Yuksin? Are you fluent in Korean? 네. Yes, I am fluent in Korean. Did you have a traditional Korean wedding? Yes, I did. I did 2 weddings, actually. I did one wedding in the US for my family and friends and everyone to come. And then I did one in Korea, the whole thing, taking professional photos, wearing hanbok, taking hanbok photos, doing the reception in Korea, doing all the stuff where you wear the clothes and bowing and stuff. Yeah, I did all that stuff in Korea. Although traditional Korean wedding today is different than what you would expect. It's not quite traditional. They have traditional elements, but they're all modern weddings. So we did a modern Korea wedding, but you might see it and think it's a traditional Korean wedding because they do certain traditional things, certain activities you do, which everyone does, and wearing hanbok and stuff like that too. No, I will not share those photos unless I got my wife's permission. I've only shared one photo at all of my wife before, or of my wedding. In one of my videos, I've shared one photo of my my wedding. You can find it if you watch all my videos. You can find it. Okay. 수업 재밌어요. Nice. Fran CL asks, do both 예뻐하다 and 귀여워하다 mean to adore? Yes, they both. 예뻐하다 is more like you feel like they're pretty, like you think, oh, they're so 예뻐, and 귀여워하다 is more like, oh, they're so cute. So you could use them for slightly different ages, but it's not that different that you have to know when to use one or the other. Use either one. My mom said that she understood this finally. Nice. Is there a live for grammar to become? Yes, I should have several videos about how to use the verb 되다, to become. There should be a lot of episodes about that. Adri asks, could you do a video about the different sentence endings? Yes, I did. I've done lessons about all of those before. Adri, check out my, there's a Google document that I link every single community post I make. Click on that. You can find all the lessons I've ever done. Those ones were actually really early on. I did those as some of my very first lessons. Okay, Good asks, this might be a bit more advanced. How is 아오하다 used for 동사? 힘들다 is not a action verb. That's the answer. It's not used for 동사 because 힘들다 is a descriptive verb. 첫사랑을 못 잊어한다? Are you talking about 잊어버린다? But anyway, 힘들다 is a descriptive verb, so that's not... If you find a different example, I can talk about it. But this form is for descriptive verbs. 사실 versus 진실. 진실 is sincere. There's a slang word, a slang expression. They just say, that's different. Anyway, for 사실, 진실, all you really need to know is 사실 is like reality or real, and 진실 is like sincerity or sincere. So they're different words. I thought 지루하다 was mostly for things. It's boring. Yeah, but 지루하다 can also be used for people too. If you're saying you feel like something is boring, in that sense. You're not saying I am a boring person. That would be wrong. If you say 심심해요, 지루해요, but 지루해요 is your expression that something else is boring. So feeling like the class is boring. 지루해하다. In that sort of sense. If you're ever confused, though, about a definition of any word, I recommend, because the problem with definitions when you're trying to define, like, oh, I thought this word means this, or this word means this, is because English uses descriptive verbs. English uses verbs differently than Korean uses verbs. You might translate as, 무서워, as, oh, that's so scary. But in reality, it means like that I feel scared. You might translate 춥다 as in, oh, it's cold weather today. 오늘 날씨가 춥네. The weather's cold today. You might think, oh, it's cold. Then how can I say 나는 추워? I am cold? No, it means I feel cold. 춥다 also is feeling, expressing your feeling of cold. So the problem is just the translation in English never matches the translation in Korean. So if you're ever wondering about a verb, a descriptive verb, what the descriptive verb actually means, just search it into Naver, because Naver has literally everything, and read the Korean definition. Don't even bother with the English definition. This is, yeah, and even if you look for 무섭다, 어떤 대상에 대하여 꺼려지거나 무슨 일이 일어날까 겁나는 태가 있다. This is talking about having, you feel like you feel afraid that something bad might happen about a person or something. And then the other definition is 두려움이나 놀라움을 느낄 만큼 성질이나 기세 따위가 몹시 사납다. So something is very, very, some sort of vicious, strong feeling that you have, so much that you can feel like surprise or fear. So it's just the feeling of surprise or fear, or the feeling of being afraid to do something. I'm sorry, I'm not great at translating the definitions back into English. I would need a little bit more time to do that clearly. The final definition is 정도가 매우 심하다. That's for a different form. That's like 하기가 무섭게. I think I did that a couple weeks ago. So you can see the definitions. It doesn't say an object itself is make someone scary. It just means you feel scared in the Korean definition. But if you look in the English definition, you can see scary, which doesn't mean, you wouldn't say, I am scary. You mean, I am scared. So in English, it's separated between feeling and a description. But in Korean, it's not always separated. A lot of descriptive verbs have that double meaning in them when translated to English, that they translate as both scary movie and I feel scared. But in Korean, the definition's not changing. So yeah. Sorry, I don't know if that made any sense to anyone. Well, could you remember that the definition I told you of the 하다 is to act outwardly as if? So that might work. I'll just say that's not a common thing. I have a question. I'm struggling when to use 된 이상. small. I did a live stream about 이상. I recommend checking that out. 이상, you can think of it as a because form. Literally, it's a because form. It's not the same as other words for 이상. There's a few other words for mean 이상. That one is a because form, but it translates as often unless or as long as. So I did a full live stream about that, though. You can check out. I know you're asking about 이상. Okay. Is there a plan for making Korean Made Simple advanced? No, there's no plan for that. What's the difference between 거예요 and 거였어요? 거예요 is the standard future tense, like 할 거예요, I will do it. 할 거였어요, I was going to have done it. 할 거였는데, but that's not used. That would sound awkward if you're saying 할 거였어요. But you would use it in the past tense. 한 거였어요. 그랬던 거였어요. It still sounds a bit awkward. If you give me an example, I could tell you, but if you just throw those out like that without any conjugation, I can't give you anything other than the first one's the standard future tense ending. The second one is not a standard ending, but it could be used in some situations, but you'd have to give me a sentence and I can tell you how they're different, but they're not related to each other. I have a Korean friend who thinks that the Korean language is being lost. No, not at all. Is the English language being lost because we use Latin, because we use Japanese words, because we use other language words in English? You know, there's lots of Egyptian words in English. There's lots of French words, Spanish words in English. You know, I go out to eat some tacos. I want to go watch a sumo wrestling match and eat some sushi. You know, we have other Japanese words in English. No one really cares. Like, yeah, watch anime on TV. Like, no, it's ridiculous. The Korean language is totally normal. It's always had loan words anyway. In every language, there is no pure language anyway. Every language, well, unless the whole country is isolated, every language has words from other languages around it. Even North Korea, who you might think, well, North Korea is isolated. No, North Korea has tons of Russian words in it. So they would have even Russian pronunciation of English words. One that I heard is that in Korea, normally you say boss. But I heard that they use boss more in North Korean because it's more like a Russian pronunciation of the English word bus. That's what I heard. No, so yeah, every language, unless it's an isolated country, every language is mixed from other languages. So Korean having a lot of English words doesn't dilute it any more than it does any other language. I mean, if you learn Spanish, you're going to still use a lot of English words too. But does that mean Spanish is being lost? Like, no, you obviously can't speak English in Korea. And a lot of the English words they have in Korea have a different meaning too. So yeah. Yeah, Daisy says, can I combine 는 중 with 고 있다? Yes, that's how it's often combined. 하고 있는 중. Totally normal. And I did a live stream about 중, and I gave some examples about that as well. Yeah, you can use them because they're not the exact same meaning. Can anyone explain what 같다? That's the same as 가지다. 가지다. 가지다 is more often shortened to just 같다. 같다. Same thing. If you take this off, then you get 같다. It's the same thing. There are slightly different uses for it, but it's the exact same verb. Like you wouldn't use it in a command as 가지세요. You would use 가지세요. But if you're not doing commands, you can use either of them for anything. Coleslaw. I had coleslaw for lunch. Actually, it was good. Someone said Betul. Your comment doesn't show up. Said Chinese is the purest language. No, Chinese uses tons of English words too. There is no pure language. That is a falsity Is that a word, falsity? It's false. There is no pure language, and like I said, unless it's in a completely isolated country, of which there's like none, they all have had influence from other cultures. There is no language that lives in a bubble. Let's see. Yeah. For past tense, that was one of the examples I gave really quick was past tense, like 한거였어, but that's just a past tense. Everything was prepared. Everything was set. 정하다. 정해지다, to be set. So everything had been set. That's an alternate to the past tense form. You can say 정해졌어요 or 정해진 거예요. Everything was set, or 정해진 거였어요. Everything had been set. So it's a double past, I guess, in that form. Falsehood. Sure. I just said it's false. That works. Tim asks, do you like ramen? I do. I do like ramen. It's not the healthiest food, though, but I like it. My friend used 싶어하다 when he was talking about himself. Instead of 내가 하고 싶다, he said 내가 하고 싶어하다. No, I actually taught about that in this lesson. Maybe I didn't say it. Maybe you weren't here right when I said it. I said you can use this hada form when talking about yourself, but that it's a bit awkward. It's not wrong, but it's less common. And in my opinion, a little bit awkward. So you could say, 나도 가고 싶어 해. Like, I also kind of feel like I want to go. Like, yeah, you can. It's less common though, and I don't recommend doing it. But I did mention to keep an eye out for it because it could happen. Falsity is a word. Okay, Cheryl, don't correct my English if it's not wrong. Someone says falsity is a word. Let's check. Falsity is sure. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. Ramen is life. Yes, ramen is life. 공감대가 없다. 공감 is empathy. Well, literally, yeah. Literally, same, 감. Feeling, same feeling. If you have any questions about like what does a word mean, the faster way is just to check Naver. I mean, I'm not a dictionary, frankly. Like, I'm not the best person to ask for just what does word mean, unless it's like, what does this word mean as far as like, what's the difference between this word and this word? I can tell you because I'm a teacher. But if you're asking me like, what does this word mean? It's honestly faster just to look up in a dictionary, because if I tell you something, a dictionary is going to give you a longer definition anyway than what I would tell you. If you ask me, what does 고양이 mean? Like, well, I could tell you it means cat. What does 강아지 mean? Well, I can tell you it means puppy. But if you look in a dictionary, it'll tell you that right away with more examples too, like, exactly how to use it and everything. So it's probably better. Anyway. Oh, hey, Princess, thank you. Princess Moonbeam 07. Where's the 0719 come from? It's your plot to get rid of all my ink by having a really long name. Wow, thank you. I'm gonna do a dab dance. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Thank you. So yeah, though for everyone else, I'll save you some time. If you have any questions, what does this word mean? I mean, I could tell you what words mean, but a dictionary will be better because it'll also give you lots of examples. I might give you one example of a word if I tell you. Just a word, like I said, not regular questions, but just what does this word mean? Dictionaries will tell you lots of examples for it. So go on Naver. It is really easy. Dictionary.naver.com. And I think there's even a better one. There's like an English version too. I just use the full version in Korean. But you can switch over to English version if you like that better. It's probably simpler. dictionary.naver.com, and it has everything. If you're like, oh, I wonder, what does this word mean? Type it in here. It'll tell you the Korean definition. It'll tell you exactly what it means. Now, if you look at here and you can't figure out a word, how is this one different than this? They seem to be the same. Or I see this one says this. Does that mean this? Then that's the type of question I'd be good for answering. But if you ask me, what does a word mean? Like, yeah, it means that. But a dictionary would probably give you more information than I would, because dictionaries have everything. I recently watched your fun numbers video and I want to put 천사 at the end of my name. Yeah, that's super common. If you do, though, it's kind of an old thing to do. At least I remember a lot of people doing that like 15, 20 years ago, and not as many today. But it's okay if you want to do that. The people I know who have email addresses with 천사 at the end are all over 40. I'll just say that. 선생님, 저는 선생님께서 영어로 한국어 가르치는 걸 보고 영어를 공부하고 있어요. Nice, we study. Welcome. 가르치는, yeah, 가르치는 is a common, it's a dialect. It's fine. It's not wrong, it's just a dialect. Technically wrong because it's dialect, but it's so common dialect. I remember that in when I was in Busan, that was really common. Everyone says 가르치다 instead of 가르치다. Yeah, it was just normal. 짠돌이, 짠순이. 짜다 is the word for stingy. That's salty, is what they say in Korean. 싸다 would be referring to the price of someone. So if you said 싼돌이, that would sound like you're saying the person himself doesn't have any money or that he's inexpensive. That's different. They use 짜다. 짜다 is like, like being not friendly, like I'd have to look up a good English definition for it. But yeah, you use 짜다 for that, like stingy. Okay. Sometimes I found a word from workbook, but can't find the meaning descriptor in Naver. Only like random short expression without context. You might have typed it in incorrectly. It depends on the word. If you come across a word that that doesn't show up in Naver, you're probably typing it in wrong. Because Naver has literally everything. Except maybe some really, really obscure, misspelled internet meme. It wouldn't have that. But if you have any regular word, Naver will have it. Even if it's like a slang word or regular internet word, it has it. So you probably typed it in wrong. If it only shows like a short example sentence and nothing else, it's probably showing an example sentence of a misspelled word or incorrectly used word. And there's a lot of these in Korean, actually. A lot of words in Korean that are commonly misspelled or misused. And if you search up the misuse or sometimes a dialect version, it might not come up in Naver as anything more than one example sentence. But if you search for the original word, you'll find it. So you might have to be careful about which word you're typing into Naver. Yeah, some mistakes like that are really common. And like I said, when I was in Busan, it was so common. More people said 가르치다, I heard, than 가르치다. And I once said 가르치다 as one person, and they said, no, it's 가르치다. I've had Koreans correct my Korean to their wrong Korean because it's dialect. It's just really common dialect. I was just actually thinking about this the other day. There are so many Korean words that are wrong that are more common than the correct versions. Another one I was just thinking about. It's kind of fun. I know our class is over. You guys are free to go if you just want if you just wanted today's lesson. But another really common one. This is a super pro tip. This is a pro tip for advanced learners. These are two verbs. Same with ikta. There's actually a bunch of these. A lot of verbs have two things at the bottom, right? So there are rules for how you're supposed to pronounce these. For example, this one is, well, here in this case, it's just takta, takta. And in this one, it's papta. Papta. Papta is to step on something, or like to take a step on something. And 닦다 is to wipe something, like wiping off a table, cleaning a table. Well, guess what? Nobody says these. Nobody says this. It's the correct way to say it. And if you look in the dictionary and click the little voice file, it'll pronounce it as 팝다, 팝다, 닦다, 닦다. No one says that. You know what people actually pronounce this as? They pronounce it as 밟다, which is wrong. No one says 팝다 unless you're reading files for a dictionary. Or, some people would say it. They want to be really proper. And it sounds okay, but 밟다 is what people say. It's wrong. 밟다. They just say both of these sounds because you know what? I'm Korean. I don't care about rules. 밟다. Don't step on it. They're not going to say 밟지마. 밟지마 is the correct one. Sounds weird. 밟지마. 내 노트북 밟지마. Don't step on my notebook. They're not going to say 밟지마. 밟다. Another one is this. Nobody says 닦다. 닦다. No. This is how it's actually used. 닦다. 닦. Now, when they say it, of course, you can't say a double 기역 anyway, so. 닦다. So you say wipe the table. They're not going to say 닦아요. They're going to say 닦아요. 닦아요. 나 닦았어. 닦아. 닦으라고 했어. I told you wipe it. So there's a lot of these in Korean. I could probably make like a long list of all the words in Korean that are not actually read the way that they're supposed to be, that are actually pronounced differently when they're supposed to be, like you're supposed to say it this way, but people don't actually say it that way. I think my first exposure to that, I don't know if there's any Koreans watching, you'll know what I'm talking about. 지금 이 라방 보고 있는 한국 분이 계시면 이거를 알 거예요, 이미. 이거를 어떻게 발음하는지 아시나요? 무 봤다. 그러니까 무 봤냐고 할 때 이게 무 봤냐고 하는지 아니 이게 무 봤냐고 하는지. So this is something that's kind of fun. Some people, older people, this is 무 봤다. This is a dialect version of 먹어봤다, a dialect version of 먹었다, to eat. Past tense 먹었다 for Busan specifically. This kind of gets pronounced sometimes like a V. It has to do with some older Korean pronunciation. Like, I don't. Basically, I was just trying to say there's a lot of words in Korean that like a lot of phrases and stuff in Korean that just get pronounced completely differently than you think. 저요 한국 사람. Okay. Maybe you know that. Maybe you don't. Do you know that? Do you know about 밥 먹었나? Like, hey James, welcome. 표준 발음법. Yes, that says you can only. Yes, Grant came in. Yeah, Grant, I was talking about, I don't know how long you're here. Some words that are actually said wrong. Not the correct way. I don't know if you missed, but I was talking about 밟다, for to step on, how it's always said as 밟다, which is wrong. It's 100% wrong. But you'll never hear someone say 밟다. Even though you check in the dictionary, that's how you're supposed to say. And the same thing with 닦다. You don't hear people say 닦아요. 테이블 닦아요. 식탁을 닦아요. They say 닦아요, even though there is no double tigat in there. So yeah, we're just talking about some of those things. And I was also talking about how there's like sometimes pronunciations of words that aren't even Hangul, that don't even exist in Hangul. Like there is no V sound in Hangul, but there is with some dialect words. And it's not even like a crazy dialect. It's like a normal Busan dialect. Yeah, I know. 내 서울말 잘한다고 진짜다. Yeah, I know I'm only talking like this, like totally free because our lesson's over. So yeah, you guys get a little bit of a bonus here. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So keep an eye out for that. I'd be curious, like, let me know other things that you find that are not pronounced the way that they're written. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about common mistakes like parada is most often used as sorry, I wrote that really weird. pareda. Like, you're hoping for something. The correct term is para고 있어요, but or para요. But no one says para요 unless you're writing an essay or something. It's always pareo, pare. 행복하길 바래. I hope you're happy. they're not going to use parayo. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where even if it's written a certain way, it's pronounced differently, where it's not said that way. And if you talk about dialects, there's a lot of cases, but there's quirks of dialects. But even beyond dialects, there's stuff that's simply just not pronounced that way by anyone. Like I was saying, some verbs that have double 받침 at the bottom, sometimes people just read both of them. Like they don't care. And sometimes it'll be more common. The reason is we were talking about 가르치다 and 가르키다, which is wrong, but you need to be aware of it because a lot of people use 가르키다. But then when they write 가르키다, they'll also write it with ki. They're not going to write it as chi and pronounce it as ki. But then there are some examples, as I was saying, of words that are actually written a certain way and not pronounced that way. Even though they will write it, they'll always write it as 탁다. You're not going to pronounce it as 탁다. They'll write it this way, though. Trying to think if that would be a good example. No, that's just the sound change rule. I guess a really common one, maybe this is too basic, but this is super basic. So you might not think this is the same thing, but this is kind of an example of the same thing. Like 할 거예요, I will do something. 거예요? 할 거예요? No one would ever say 거예요. It's very hard to say. It's always 에. Although it's written as 예. And another really common one, like mine, you can say 나의. But they just say 에. That's just to make it easier to say. So I'm not sure if these are the best examples of ones that are said differently than they're written. These ones, it's just to make it easier to say, not that they're changing the sound. Whereas 밟다, I think, is harder to say than 밟다, right? 밟다 is easier to say than 밟다. But they don't make it easier to say, they just say it differently. Same with like 닦아 is easier to say than 닦아. You have to add the tense there. They don't care. So these aren't really examples where they say it a different way that doesn't make it easier. These are where they just change it to make it easier to say. I'm not sure if I can think of other examples of that. 읽다, though, that one they would say is 읽다. Like but if you're saying 읽고 있어요, that's fine. You would pronounce it because you have a 고 in there, the 기억 in there. 읽었어요. Yeah. No, that wouldn't really be a good example. Sometimes people say it as 읽다, but mostly it's just 읽다. 표준 발음법. Yeah. No one should learn these as the original ones. Like you should not learn that how to pronounce it before you learn the proper way to say it. These are just like, kind of be aware of it. No, yeah. Mustafa, ilki is read as ilki. That's because there's a double kiok, so it combines, and the bottom letter, the lir, can be pronounced normally. Why am I stuttering? There's nothing you need to do about that. You can just pronounce it regularly. Ilki, the end. You don't need to do any special sound change rules except combine the two kiok sounds. Often classified 6 to 9. Well, it depends how much Jeju dialect a person's using. 못해요. That's just sound change rules. Chris Fu. That's just a sound change rule. So that wouldn't be a something like. And betul also. 갈게요 is just a sound change rule. So that's not what I'm referring to. I'm not talking about something that happens because of a sound change rule, or even something that happens where they change it because it's easier to say. I'm talking about where they change it to something else just because it's pronounced a different way because they want to. Okay. I think that's good enough. I don't want to go too long. We've already been 10 minutes over. Thank you everyone for coming, the ones that came to this lesson. And make sure to check the worksheet and the outline for this stream as soon as it's over. And I will see you guys again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.